Alright, so in this video, we are going to talk about whether the new Apple Watch Ultra is good for triathlons. I've run 2 marathons, the New York City one in 2018 and 2019, and this summer I did my first triathlon. And for those events, I've been using the Garmin Forerunner. This current model is the 935. So when the Apple Watch Ultra came out, it made me think to myself, is this good enough to replace my current Garmin setup? So in this video, we are going to talk about the good of the Apple Watch Ultra, the bad, who this is for, and whether or not I'm going to keep this model. Okay, so let's talk about the pros. I ran, I swam, and I biked with this watch on for the past week. And the first thing that I really liked about it is that Apple's presentation of the data is a bit more sleek than the Garmin app. For running, the type of information that it showed was pretty much the same as my Garmin app. So for example, it showed me the total time, the distance, how many calories I burnt, my average mile pace, elevation, and heartbeat. For swimming, it showed the total workout time, calories, distance, heart rate, laps, and average pace. And what I thought was cool about the presentation for the swimming especially was that it broke down how much distance I did of each stroke, which is something I haven't seen in the Garmin app. And for the biking portion, there's some glitch, so the app keeps crashing every time I try to access the data, which is kind of weird. I do love the physical buttons because even being able to start and stop a workout using the buttons, it's a lot easier to have that tactile feedback than trying to fidget around on the touchscreen, especially if your fingers can get sweaty or wet while you're doing a swim. The other pros that I really like about this Apple Watch is that it kind of solves some of the problems I've been experiencing with Apple Watches of the past, mainly durability and battery life. Because when I had Apple Watches in the past, I was always scared that I was going to crack it if I banged it too hard on something, and the replacement bill for Apple Watches are notoriously expensive, almost as expensive as getting a new Apple Watch itself. Luckily, this was really durable, and I never was scared to bang it up like I do with any of my other watches. And previously, Apple Watches only lasted about a day, but I was getting consistently at least 2 days on a charge, maybe more depending on how much I used it. Even though 2 days is nothing compared to about the week's worth of battery life I get on my Garmin, it's still double what I was used to, and being able to charge it every other day was a much better experience. So it's durable and it lasts a good amount of time. It's 49 millimeters and I have the skinniest wrist, but because how light it is and how comfortable it is, it never really felt weird wearing it. I was really comfortable with it all the time. Okay, let's talk about the bad. Honestly, for how janky the Garmin app is, I kind of miss it because I've been using the Garmin ecosystem for the past 5 years with all my running apps, and I'm so used to being able to see information at the touch of a button, and not being able to access that information was a quite frustrating experience when I really wanted to see it. For example, when I go running on the Garmin app, you can see the average pace of your mile extrapolated out, and you can see your instantaneous pace as well. The lap pace is a really good metric to help you keep a much more steady pace instead of your instantaneous pace. I wasn't able to find that information easily on my Apple Watch, and I wish I had access to it. It's little things like that I missed when I was switching over to the Apple ecosystem. Another thing that was a little bit annoying was Watch OS. Even though the physical buttons make it a lot easier to interact with, Watch OS was mainly built off the idea that you'd be interacting with it using the touchscreen. So the physical buttons felt a little bit more of like an afterthought, whereas on the Garmin, it's an integral part of the way you interact with your smartwatch device. So who is this watch for? Well, if you saw MKBHD's review of it, he said it's for a small group of people that want to do the extreme sports. I think it's an even smaller subset of those people. I think it's those people who want to do the extreme sports that are either in the market for upgrading their equipment or trying to get into something entirely new. Like for example, if I wanted to go diving and they advertise this as being an adequate dive computer, maybe I would consider this device over some of the other dive computers on the market. Also, I like to replace my running GPS watch about every 2 to 3 years. If 2 years down the line I was in the market for a new smartwatch device, this would be a very good candidate that I would seriously consider. So, am I going to keep this Apple Watch? The answer is no, because it's expensive and I'm happy with the equipment that I have today. But I do love that Apple made this for 3 main reasons. Number one is because that they are pushing the boundaries of what's possible with these devices. It's kind of like Nike made the best marathoning running shoe for a very specific small small group of elite performers. But later on, what they learned from that shoe started trickling down into some of their other running shoes, like the carbon fiber plate, like their Zoom X cushion technology. I want to see that happen with the Apple Watch. I want this to be the top of the line so that later on, some of the things that they learn from this can start trickling down. Maybe there's going to be an Apple Watch with a bigger battery. Maybe some of the regular Apple Watches can have an action button as well. There's no reason that it only has to be on the Ultra version. Number 2, it's going to start putting pressure on the rest of the industry. It's going to force Garmin to step up their smartwatch game. It's going to force dive computer companies to step up their game, because whenever Apple makes a move, it becomes an industry trendsetter. And number 3, I really enjoyed wearing this so much more than I thought I would. And as a small-time YouTuber, I don't get these things for free. I buy it with my own money, and if I like it, I keep it. But if I don't think it makes that big of an improvement in my life, I'm happy to return it back to Apple. It's honestly a little bit nerve-wracking every time I go in to return something, because I have this fear that they're just gonna say no, or I'm gonna get blacklisted for returning things too much. But this, I'm actually gonna miss it, because I just had a lot of fun wearing it. It was cool, it was durable, it was light, it synced up with my devices. My friends were excited to try it out too. So Apple Watch Ultra, it's been fun. I'm excited to reconnect with you in a few years and see how much you've grown and how much the other Apple Watches have grown as well. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.